Kerry Hickey is a man full of mixed emotions.
I'm happy that I've made a decision, I can move forward. I think I'm sad that I'm walking away from a job that I love. I'm anxious because I don't know what the future holds.
Last month, the state MP found himself embroiled in a scandal following revelations he'd fathered a child with a parliamentary clerk. Premier Christina Keneally supported him at the time and his intention to recontest his seat. But Mr Hickey now says a Sydney-based newspaper journalist hounding his family over the weekend proved the final straw.
At the end of the day, when the children are being hassled by the media, it sort of makes you put in perspective your life.
It wasn't just 1 or 2 calls, was it?
No, it was 21 calls on the day.
The Premier respects his decision.
I understand the circumstances that led him to make that decision. I acknowledge that he has had a long career in government, including as a minister, and I wish him all of the best in the future.
That future will include a more private life with his partner and their 18-month-old daughter.
I'm looking forward to be able to burn the suits, put on the jeans and t-shirt and spending some time with my young daughter and being a dad.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
There are thousands of nurses employed by Hunter New England Health and, according to the union, many aren't happy with a new, less flexible rostering system. The Nurses Association didn't want to outline the main complaints today, explaining it's entered into conciliation with the health service to address the issues.
I guess what we're looking is seeing that we can get a roster system that gives people certainty and that we look at a work-life balance that's suitable for any person who works.
A dozen nurses, along with the union representatives, headed to the Industrial Relations Commission. Their lawyer told the hearing there's a trend that seems they put in their preferences and they get very little, if any, of their preferences in the rosters. She added for some nurses it's a constructive dismissal because they just can't work them. Discussions between the two parties continued all day and they'll meet throughout the week.
I'm very hopeful. So it's been a very productive morning and afternoon.
Hunter New England Health says it's pleased that it's been able to work through some of the issues raised by the Nurses Association. It will reconvene on Monday to report any resolutions. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Newcastle's biggest tourist attraction in recent years was the Pasha Bulka. In the 3 weeks it sat on Nobby's beach, business in the town boomed, visitor numbers swelled and the city hit the world headlines. Historian Johnny DeGravio says that shows Newcastle needs an attraction, not just a CBD.
I don't know anyone that spends $3,000 to go and visit the CBD of another country. What they go to see is something else. They go to see the cathedral, or they go even see the pyramids, or they go and see the Forum, the Roman Forum, or the Colosseum. They go to see something other than the CBD.
He says Newcastle's rich history would be a draw card if packaged properly, perhaps in a world-class structure like this on the foreshore. Meantime, Newcastle Council has released a plan to revitalise Hunter Street by breaking it into 3 distinctive zones, the east, the mid and western sections. But long-time business operators say the priority since losing GPT should be to try and keep the city's anchor tenant.
I think what we do need to do is concentrate on convincing David Jones that they need to stay in the city. The city needs them, and I think David Jones also needs the city. The David Jones store in town draws a certain clientele that favour David Jones in town well over David Jones' operation at Garden City.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
child protection is everybody's business, and we all have a responsibility in the community to protect our children.
The Knights went to Melbourne hoping to spoil the party, but in the end the Storm proved how good a team can be if you ignore the salary cap. The home side opened the game in a dominant fashion, leaving Newcastle shell-shocked. In reality, yesterday's game meant little in the Knights' 2010 campaign. The coach says the damage was done at the start of the season. Losing Danny Wicks and Chris Houston prior to the first round hurt the forward ranks, and when an injury to Kurt Gidley kept him out for the opening 4 games, it was always going to be an uphill battle.
I think everyone expects to make the finals, when they start the season, there's no doubt about it. Possibly our start, and particularly our games at home that we dropped that we could have won, is a clincher for us.
Jared Mullen says the up and down form of several players was reflected in the team's performance.
Mate, we can't make excuses now. We're the master of our own destiny, so a bit disappointed. But I thought the last 6 to 8 weeks we really built into a good football team. So hopefully we can bring that into next year.
On a positive note, the coach was happy with the first grade debut of Kevin Nagama.
He's shown us enough over the last year, 12 months, and training and the way he's played in second grade and what he did today, that there's some more first grade games in him.
The sun was shining on Jets players this morning, but they completed their recovery session still uncertain about the fate of the club. Late today, the FFA came to the rescue, saying its short-term financial assistance will ensure the next couple of Newcastle games go ahead as planned, but the rest of the season remains unclear. The governing body's CEO, Ben Buckley, says there are a range of issues being discussed with various stakeholders, and that the funding will allow those discussions to continue and ensure the players are paid. The coach says in light of the off-field matters, yesterday's effort was pleasing without being spectacular.
I was hoping we'd be jumping out of our skins, but that's me. Maybe I expect a little bit too much, but certainly it did play on some players' minds, and maybe that was the reason we were a bit hesitant in that first 45 minutes.
Branko Kalina still has a few headaches to deal with on the pitch. Ruben Zadkovic's red card will earn him a suspension, and while Nikolai Topor-Stanley pulled up well after yesterday's game, other injuries are a concern.
Bridges has picked up a bit of a heel injury and a knee injury, and Casey Weirman's got a kick in the shins, but hopefully they'll be okay.
Just 1 goal in 4 games means there could also be changes up front. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
February 20, 2009, Jamie Purdon, aged 21, was fatally struck at the Maitland show. A man has already been convicted of manslaughter for delivering the deadly punch, while a 17-year-old who also can't be named is on trial accused of inciting the fight. In summing up today, Crown Prosecutor Helen Wilson told the jury the accused referred to Friday night at the show as fight night. The accused went to the show to become involved in aggressive behaviour. During the evening, something happened to prompt the accused to want to have a go at Mr Purdon. She said witnesses have told the court the accused said, "I'm going back to get them. Have you got my back?" Miss Wilson added he enlisted a friend's help and said he wanted that person, Jamie Purdon, taken care of. She said the accused pointed the deceased out and said, "There he is, let's go." He was chased and tragically killed. The accused claims he was 60 to 80 metres away and didn't see his friend strike Mr Purdon. He's also denied pointing him out. Defence counsel Adam Mooney told the jury the accused's friend referred to his own actions as a split-second decision, adding that the Crown needs to prove there was an agreement between him and the accused that included assaulting Mr Purdon. He added, "You have to be satisfied what the comment means, 'Have you got my back?' The accused could have meant, 'Will you be there for me?' He stressed to the jurors a verdict of not guilty can mean you think he's innocent, or you're not sure, or you're suspicious. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
According to residents, 4 million trucks will be coming and going from the old BHP site every year if it becomes a cargo terminal, and many of them will take shortcuts through Mayfield streets.
There are going to be trucks of all shapes, sizes, weights, belching out all the things that they belch out in every street in Mayfield.
We get kids here on skateboards, on their bikes, and ordinary motorists. Someone in Mayfield is going to get killed.
More than 80 residents raised concerns about noise and pollution as part of the submission process which ended yesterday, but John Hayes claims that process was compromised.
We will be calling for not only an extension of time to lodge submissions, but we'll also be calling for more consultation, more public meetings.
A spokesman for the Newcastle Port Corporation says information about the concept plan was widely available, including notices in the local media, letterbox drops, as well as a public information session. Meanwhile, the Mayfield and Newcastle motor registries will be merged. A new state-of-the-art facility will be built 100 metres from the Parry Street registry and open next April. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Philip Penfold is on a quest to help Maitland men facing homelessness.
30 years ago, Maitland had a Matthew Talbot hostel for homeless men, back when Maitland had a population of 30 or 40,000 people. Now here we are in 2010 with a population of 70,000 people, and we don't have anywhere for men who are homeless for one reason or another to go.
He's lobbying the business and government sectors for money to set up a permanent men's refuge. Mr Penfold says it will cater for men who have had to leave their home because of a family breakdown or if they're perpetrators or victims of domestic violence. Women's Refuge Carrie's Place says the idea has some merit. The refuge has recently received state funding to implement the Staying Home Leaving Violence program, which helps women and children affected by violence stay in the family home while moving the perpetrator out of it.
So yes, if Philip Penfold and the Dads in Distress group are looking at providing a place for men who are perpetrators of domestic violence to go, then there's some merit in that because it does relieve the issue that magistrates often face about where is a man going to go.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A cross being taken from town to town, a 3-month pilgrimage honouring Mary McKillop.
Here's a woman with her own crosses in life, rose above them and gave people hope.
Mary's going to be our first saint, and I just want to be part of it.
In Rome, in 44 days, Mary McKillop will be canonised. This cross has been designed to promote her work and allow everyone to say thanks.
I think it's wonderful that a piece of the wood of the original Woods McKillop School is going around Australia.
To think that it is part of Mary's story, and she's a great woman that we would like to be like.
Whether it's just been 5 people at Grenfell Church or whether it's been a cathedral full of people, we're getting the same reaction.
Even from the outside looking in, there's something about Mary McKillop that's remarkable. She's touched many lives, but none more than Kathleen Evans. The 66-year-old from Windale was one of the future saints' church recognised miracles.
I'm just an ordinary, everyday person.
And the church hopes the journey of this symbol of hope can inspire others.
People are looking and questioning, and I think all that questioning is good. They're looking for hope. Where do we find it?
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
It was the announcement the Jets had been waiting for, but it only guarantees the club's survival for the next 2 weeks. Professional Footballers Australia says that's not good enough. It's revealed that Football Federation Australia signed a participation agreement with Newcastle just a few weeks ago. That ensured the Jets are to be part of the A-League for years to come.
The PFA and the players, of course, have assumed, we would say fairly, that an extensive due diligence process was undertaken before FFA signed those agreements.
PFA Chief Executive Brendan Schwab says players are keen to see the club flourish, but realistically they have limited options elsewhere for now.
The season's only just begun. The transfer window has closed. Clubs have filled their player rosters and clubs are up or at their salary cap.
FFA Chairman Frank Lowy has called on fans, local businesses and the state government to ensure the club's survival. He suggested that if the Jets fold, Newcastle's chances of hosting a potential World Cup clash in 2022 would be remote. In response, the Minister for the Hunter released a statement saying the Keneally government, through Hunter Venues, is negotiating with both the Jets and the Knights for a fair and equitable deal at Energy Australia Stadium.
It's taken 100 years to get some of these photos on a wall.
We've been working on it for quite some time and it's fantastic to see it realised in a physical form.
A man named Ralph Snowball took them between 1880 and 1923. They're possibly the first photos of Newcastle and they're priceless, just like the gear they were taken with.
For us, they're like windows to another time. You can't beat a glass negative image.
There's the waterless Nobby's Headland, the Newcastle Post Office in its glory days, but there's also pictures that remain a mystery.
I saw my own house and in the slums of Cooks Hill as they were then, so it's wonderful to see. So I was very excited by that, and I'm sure lots of people in the community will be finding elements of their own histories.
And if you're after a walk down memory lane, then Lovett Gallery currently has something special for the young at heart. These illustrations are from Australia's best-selling children's books. They belong to a private collector who, like a big kid, decided to share.
I have been a children's librarian, now the installation officer here, so yeah, I know a lot of the work. It's part of my history too.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
After backing the Labor Party, there's no doubt Rob Oakeshott has lost some fans and raised some questions, including this one from Paterson Liberal MP Bob Baldwin on Twitter. Did Oakeshott sell out for the job of Speaker? Surely not, referring to a job opportunity offered by the Prime Minister. Mr Baldwin claims he was actually standing up for the Lion MP over an inference being made by other people.
Very aware that there'll be people who will, be wanting to cut my arms off. There'll be people who will be wanting to give me the greatest hug in the world.
Now that a government is finally being formed, there's a call for action, especially in Newcastle.
What are you actually going to do? We've just lost $600 million investment through the state Labor government. The federal government holds the purse strings with the Infrastructure Australia money.
The main issue on the table is transport. The Newcastle Alliance for One is questioning Labor's commitment to investigate fast trains.
Let's forget about that $20 million investment they want to make in looking at it again and put that into something that's real that we can get a result from in the region. We keep being told that we're the powerhouse of the Hunter, the powerhouse of New South Wales. Well, the powerhouse is fast running out of power and we need some money spent on us.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News. Newcastle certainly turned it on to welcome the Pacific sun. A perfect morning, but a less than perfect start to its maiden cruising season out of the port. Just before these pictures were shot, one of the forklifts fell into the harbour, driver and all. Luckily, the driver only suffered bruised pride. It was much smoother sailing on board. With a few formalities, the 47,000-tonne vessel was officially welcomed to its new home port. It'll be based at Carrington for 6 cruises over the next couple of months, injecting around $3 million into the local economy.
The ships bring obviously money into the region and to the city, both from the crew but also from the passengers who hopefully will spend some time either side exploring the region.
These passengers will be the first to sail out of Newcastle, and they wasted no time enjoying the facilities. The push is now on to make these cruises a permanent fixture.
You can't let opportunities slip away. We've got to work very hard to maintain these opportunities.
And it looks like the captain is already right at home.
I've been passing by Newcastle many times on the way to and from Sydney and always see so many ships at anchor waiting for making the port. And honestly, I didn't know really much about it. Now I know the place is beautiful.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
After 45 years, Maxwell's Creek timber mill has come to a grinding halt. Its 35 workers were given little notice, they've packed up their belongings and are now pondering relocation or retirement.
I've been there 43 years. The ultimate aim was to go 50 and then retire. But that's not going to happen now.
Alison Ives' partner Ewan is also jobless. They're expecting a child in 5 weeks.
What do you do? So it's just upsetting for everyone.
Boral says the mill was a high-cost operation. The site will be sold off in 12 months. It's a quick death for the place that once famously provided furnishings for an Australian icon. But perhaps it's the neighbouring town of Dungog which is the biggest loser. The Centrelink and Support Office is fast becoming a crisis centre.
Really, really busy and quite depressing really for the staff and for the whole community. We are really reeling here.
Council has sent out an SOS. They're calling for some quick thinking on a contentious issue.
We need a decision on Tilligra, one way or the other, so that business can make their decisions and move forward, and we need that decision now.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Farley has just built 21 of these airboats for the Philippines military. But this one, with its high visibility paint job, is due to arrive in the Victorian town of Wangaratta tonight to aid the State Emergency Service in its flood relief work.
The boats will be able to get in and out of floodwater areas to service homes, pick up people, deliver supplies, and they can also carry quite a substantial amount of weight if they need to move significant items around.
The locally developed airboat only needs a few centimetres of water in which to operate and can even push itself across damp ground thanks to a Teflon skid pad on the hull.
These boats in flood area are going to be better because the floodwaters can be quite shallow. You can change between land and flooded areas, and this boat will go across both. It can also run over the top of debris, fallen trees, items like that. It can go across the top of it with no issues.
The company has sent 2 skippers to Victoria to operate the craft. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Strikeforce Crinan dragged Joseph Connell, John Morrison and Daniel Voss from this red car just after 11 a.m. yesterday after pulling the vehicle over on the Pacific Highway at Bennett's Green. Police claim the men aged 48, 44 and 41 are members of the Rebels bikie gang. All are accused of extorting Port Stephens tattoo shops. Placed in separate police cars, they were taken to Belmont Police Station and charged with knowingly dealing with the proceeds of crime, participating in criminal groups and demanding money with menace. As part of the operation, gang squad detectives then raided the Rebels' Newcastle headquarters at Wickham, sawing through a roller door. Simultaneous raids were executed at homes in Cahaiba, Kitchener and Hamilton South. Police allegedly seized hydroponic plants, cannabis and crystal methamphetamine and other prohibited items. This afternoon, the men faced Newcastle local court, where Morrison was granted conditional bail, while Connell and Voss were remanded in custody. The case has been adjourned until the 3rd of November. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Michael Capel was shot dead by a police officer at a Lake Macquarie caravan park almost 2 years ago. He suffered 11 gunshot wounds. In handing down his findings today, the Deputy State Coroner said, "I am satisfied that each of the police officers acted responsibly and that no criticism of their actions is warranted." He added there is no basis to suggest the number of shots fired was excessive. But family members disagreed.
Was overkill. In the autopsy result, it says the first bullet hole killed Michael. Totally mishandled right from the first 5 minutes. Nobody listened to me. I told them what they were walking into, and They just took control themselves and out come the guns.
The coroner did find the police delay in responding to the situation was unfortunate. Mr Capel's mother first called officers at 11:15am after her son assaulted her. She wanted help and medication for him, but police did not arrive until about 5pm.
And after 6 hours of waiting, 4 phone calls, and then still had to physically go up to the police station 3 blocks away and still ask, when is someone coming to help?
But Mr McMahon also found the delay did not aggravate the situation.
Yeah, I find that very hard to believe.
He concluded by saying Michael's death was a tragedy. In retrospect, it could have been prevented. He had ceased receiving his prescribed antipsychotic medication. When Michael was medicated, he was not a threat to anyone. That too brought no satisfaction to Mr Capel's family.
Not really.
None.
None. No, I can't see any closure.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Thanks to the coach for a great season and all my teammates from Newcastle.
What about the good service from your old mate Mad Dog inside? That's pretty good too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Mad Dog if you're watching at home. But yeah, no, it's been great. It's been great. I've learned so much from the Mad Dog and
The Jets have scored just 1 goal in 4 games, so an injury to their first-choice striker is an unwelcome distraction. The captain says he'll be ready to travel to Adelaide on Friday.
Had a little bit of a cork on the thigh above the knee, so just been settling that down over the last few days, and unfortunately missed today's session, but should be right to go tomorrow.
The coach believes the whole team is responsible for the goal drought, but was encouraged by Zhang Shu's effort against the Raw.
He did okay when he came on, but I want to see more on the training track as well. You know, it's important that the fitness level is there. The game on Saturday night is going to be high tempo.
Bridges has also given the Chinese import the thumbs up.
It was just nice to see Zhang come on, a bit of fresh air, and his movement was great, so looking forward to teaming up with him as well.
With Ruben Zadkovic suspended, the coach indicated Ali Abbas could fill the gap if he proves himself on the training paddock this week. And despite the club's financial problems, Branko Kalina says it's time for his side to play the kind of football fans want to watch.
You know, our job now is to focus on Adelaide, not worry about the pay. That's just looking for an excuse if we're doing that.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Unlike most attacking players, Jordan Willett lets his game do the talking. Back home following his trip to Singapore, the teenager showed off the spoils.
we were named as favourites, so I guess put a bit of pressure on us to actually perform, and I guess we did, yeah.
He may be a gold medal winner, but he's just as determined to succeed playing for his club side alongside big brother Josh. At 17, Jordan has achieved plenty, but still has big shoes to fill.
Well, it's kind of run in my family. My pop played for Australia, and then Dad played for New South Wales.
Willett was one of the Hunters' best at the recent CHS state titles, but advancing his career will involve big changes. His next goal is a scholarship with the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Eventually, a move to Perth as a member of the Kookaburras is also on the cards.
There's not much money in hockey, so mainly for the love, but in Europe there's a bit of money, so maybe one day I might play in Europe.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Now we've got independents in federal government saying they care about regional Australia. Well, I want to take them up on that offer.
Wallsend Park is about to become home to a $490,000 skate park. Newcastle City ratepayers will only fund a fraction of the facility after the federal government agreed to pitch in $390,000. While the park is flood prone, the Lord Mayor says it will be safer than the suburb's current skate park.
I think it's a pretty good site. I know there's some concern by some residents, but the majority of residents are happy with it.
Work on the project should begin in November, and plans are progressing for Bar Beach's controversial $517,000 skate park and batball facilities, which will be built at Empire Park.
The tender for that will come to council fairly soon, almost within the next few weeks, I understand. It will go ahead.
Still at Bar Beach, and councillors have decided not to go ahead with the proposal to split Empire Park and build shops along Memorial Drive as part of the draft Newcastle Coastal Revitalisation Strategy.
It was just a nonsense in the beginning to talk about a road going through Empire Park, and that was quickly withdrawn from the plan. And then the commercialisation of the Memorial Drive frontage I also thought was fraught with problems.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Symbols of lives lost and families shattered, suicide continues to take a heavy toll on our community.
The good news is in Australia in about the last 10 years, suicide rates seem to have decreased by about 30%. However, we still do lose a substantial number of people each year.
Around 2,000 a year at present, and for every death, 6 to 8 people are significantly impacted. Tomorrow is World Suicide Prevention Day, and mental health experts are urging us to talk, reaching out especially to those who've lost a loved one.
Maybe we think we're supposed to do something, and of course what can you do except just to be there to provide some comfort, to provide some support.
The day is also an opportunity to support those who are struggling themselves.
If you suspect something's not going well for another person, for a friend or a colleague, just to say hello, how are you going, and encourage them to seek help.
So in suicide prevention, we do things that increase resilience in individuals and communities. We do things to try and identify people who may be having problems, and we also need to have the services that can help people get through those times.
There are many, and if you need immediate help, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. The Kids Helpline is tailored for young people aged 5 to 25, while Men's Line Australia also operates 24/7.
We would hope that there is a decrease in antisocial behaviour, that's our want, but certainly there'll be increasing numbers of police around this weekend, so we'd be saying to people, go out, have a good time, but avoid excessive alcohol consumption.
At 180 centimetres tall, supermodel Megan Gale certainly stands out. The Perth-born beauty dropped into colour swimwear last night to launch her new line, Isola.
Now tell me why you've chosen Newcastle as, I think, the only place outside of Sydney to launch the swimwear range.
Yeah, well, I guess for me, I really wanted to stock here, and because you guys have so many beautiful beaches here, and there are a lot of people that, like, Newcastle's a huge town.
100 lucky ladies watched on as her Italian Riviera-inspired pieces were shown off during an exclusive fashion show. And they had a big impact.
It was fantastic. I'm going to Bali in a few months, so I'm going to know of at least 6 outfits I'm going to buy from her line.
Now, were you a bit nervous knowing that Megan Gale was watching you model her line?
I didn't see her at first, and then I spotted her in the corner, and it's like, oh no, she's going to judge my walk.
From cut to colour, the supermodel says she had a hand in all aspects of the designs.
I designed these so they were like a little booklet. Like I took that, this is very personal, like I took that photo on holiday at the beginning of the year. That's a shell that my mum gave me.
And she was happy to give advice about the best cozies for those special occasions.
Now, big personal question for me.
Yes.
I'm getting married in 2 months and I'm yet to pick my bikini for my honeymoon. What can you recommend as a special one?
Bit of lift, bit of padding and lift.
Bit of padding and lift.
Done. This one. This is the booster curl. So this is basically my wonder bra in a bikini.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Adelaide and Perth are currently the A-League's top sides, and after next weekend, Newcastle will have played them both twice in 7 rounds.
We end up playing 4 teams twice, and some of them not at all. And hence the reason why I've said all along that it'll probably take a good third of the season before you actually know where you fit in.
Strikers Sean Rooney and captain Michael Bridges are both less than 100% fit, so they'll need to pass a fitness test tomorrow morning. No such injury problems for Edgeworth and Western as they prepare for the NBN State League Grand Final. Edgeworth comes into the game having overcome Hamilton last weekend and welcomes back key players from suspension.
Luke Walker and Troy Halpin, they're experienced players and they will help us a lot in the grand final. So, it's good to have them back and good to have a full team to choose from.
The sides have been neck and neck all year, 2 draws and a 1-0 win to Western, all that separates them.
I would say that it's probably going to make for a pretty tight game on the weekend. So it's generally a fairly physical game between Western and Edgeworth, has been for years and years and years.
Coincidentally, the coaches of Edgeworth and Western will step down after the game, providing both clubs with extra motivation. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's not your usual dad and daughter activity, but this is one girl who doesn't mind hanging out with her father. It's clear Victor and Kristen take their racing seriously.
Yeah, I try and look after her a bit, but I managed to tip her out of the sidecar on the practice on the Saturday. Yeah, but she was quite pleased she got up without any injuries.
My shoulder's still hurting from the other day, so I don't want to do that again anytime soon.
Victor rode historic bikes solo for 30 years before joining forces with Kristen. The 23-year-old is studying nursing, but denies she chose the subject to learn how to treat Dad's injuries.
No, I just sort of fell into nursing. Yeah, I don't know how I sort of got into it. I guess it's just like the bikes, I sort of just fall into everything.
Fortunately, she only fell out during practice. The pair then won 2 of 3 races at Phillip Island to claim the national title.
She's worked it out now, she's pretty good, and I think she helps because she's light. Some of the passengers down there are bigger than me, you know.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
I watched him since before I started boxing myself at the 2004 Athens Olympics, and I was very impressed then, and I've been very impressed with his professional career too. He's a very dangerous puncher and he's also a good boxer.
State Attorney General John Hatzistegos committed $800,000 for the scheme this morning at Newcastle Local Court, one of 5 locations that will be rolled out, the others being Cessnock, Belmont, Toronto and Maitland.
Whilst domestic violence is stable in Hunter, it is high, and we need to be able to specifically target those areas.
The 5-year initiative will provide specialist lawyers to women seeking apprehended violence orders. It targets the 10% currently forced to represent themselves in court, often with little success.
We do know that there are persons who presently are unrepresented when they bring proceedings of this nature. Many of them are quite traumatised.
Authorities hope the better legal support will also encourage more women to report abuse.
That's been our experience in the other 13 locations that we've been operating, that we actually get more people prepared to come forward knowing that in doing so they won't be on their own.
The Hunter Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service has welcomed the move, saying it'll help deliver a more holistic service.
Where women have been assisted by the police, they often need legal advice about other issues like family law, victims' compensation, care and protection. So we're really excited.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Maitland is booming. It's one of the fastest growing areas in the state, and this land at Rutherford will go some way to helping it cope. There are plans to rezone the 260-hectare site west of the existing industrial area to create more employment opportunities.
And it's very much about making sure that we have an adequate stock of employment zone land to be brought online as the city continues to grow.
Most of the land will be classed as light industrial, but the proposal also includes an environmental protection corridor. According to Maitland Council's General Manager, the need for this type of development is clear.
The take-up of industrial land in Maitland generally is about 25 hectares per year, so the simple maths indicates that we're talking about something that's going to meet that sort of demand for a 10-year horizon.
Meanwhile, the Rockefeller family has recommitted to completing a facelift of the Pender Place shopping centre despite the January killing of company head Herman Rockefeller. The new car park is complete, with work now underway to freshen up the inside of the ageing complex. Woolworths will also undergo an expansion. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
"70 years ago, the world looked to the sky. The Battle of Britain had begun. Today, there was no alarm, just reflection.
It virtually would have changed history as we know it had that battle been lost, and that's why it is so important.
Hitler set out to bomb Britain into submission. The air battle left more than 40,000 casualties below.
There were lots of awful ways to die when that happened, and it hardly bears thinking about. Heroes, each and every one of them.
None more so than our pilots.
All our hearts go out to the fighter pilots, whose brilliant actions we see with our own eyes day after day.
There was about 35 Australians participated in the actual Battle of Britain, and there was 3 to 4 who lost their lives during the conflict.
Including a 22-year-old from New Lambton, John Dallas Crossman. But unlike many pilots of the 46th Squadron who died in this explosive battle, he at least rests in peace.
They just don't know where they were. They were missing, presumed dead, and they've never been found.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
There's no doubt the Knights faced some serious hurdles this season which affected their performance, but today you could sense from the coach that his yearly review will have genuine consequences.
I think the boys, in fairness, need to put a bit more responsibility on themselves.
After years of the club being competitive without threatening for a premiership, Rick Stone has already planned a tough pre-season to turn that around, with the focus on rebuilding the Knights' once-feared defence. Veteran Adam McDougall should have re-signed by the November return date, while something of a lifeline has been thrown Chris Houston's way, should he be cleared of drugs charges.
I'm disappointed in what happened to Houso, and we would consider it if obviously all things fell into place.
Meanwhile, Kurt Gidley could remain in the halves for the start of next season after star signing Beau Henry underwent a shoulder reconstruction. In Newcastle Rugby League, West's coach Dan Quinn has almost a full roster for Sunday's preliminary showdown against a resurgent Cessnock, but he knows better than most that playing at Curry is hardly neutral territory.
Well, I thought we were fairly popular up there at Curry, so we're expecting a big supporter base from our friends at Curry this weekend.
Every week I wondered that, but I just stuck at it and worked hard, and hopefully I can repay the faith that Jonesy and Branko has shown in me.
"45 years of age and proud of it. And on Sunday, Sandy Crowe will show her hard work off at the Newcastle Natural Bodybuilding Classic.
To put your body on show in front of people is a big ask, and I've made sure I've left no stone unturned.
The PE teacher and mother of two has stuck to a strict regime in order to fulfil a long-held bodybuilding dream, which took seed 25 years ago.
Always wanted to achieve this goal, and now that my children have grown up and off the scene, it's time to look after me.
Her next goal is to run a marathon. It's felt like one for Bryce Penfold. Sick of waking up sore after playing rugby, the 27-year-old carpenter went to work on his body a few years ago. The results speak for themselves, but holding firm on a watered-down diet for the last 16 weeks has made the traditional work smoko a tough time indeed.
Come back with pies and hamburgers and milks and cokes for all the boys, and I sit down to my 200 grams of chicken breast and a bowl of broccoli. Oh, it's delicious, I love it.
Victory on Sunday would be the sweetest taste of all.